What's up everyone? Today we're going to look at some advanced prototyping in Figma. We're going to use variables, component interactions, and connect some variants to those variables. Let's jump in. Looking at our file, we can see that we have the setup to build a bit of an e-commerce store for fruit. So let's just get started. In our store, we're going to be selling apples, pineapples, bananas, and limes. So let's start by creating that first variable collection. So we're going to create a new string component, and I'm just going to call it product-name. So I'm going to go with kebab case on mine, and I'm not going to capitalize the first one. So I've got product name, which is our first variable. Now, the way we want to set it up is that because we have 4, we're going to be using 4 modes. Little note on that, if you do not have the paid for version of Figma, you will not be able to use modes. Let me know in the comments below if you want me to create a video showing how you would do this in the free mode. Our 4 modes are going to be our 4 fruit. So let's just create 3 more modes over here. Great, so we've got those 4 going for us. And then we can start just naming them. So you can name them product 1, 2, 3, 4. In this case, I'm going to name them the name of the fruit because it's just a bit easier for me. And you can tab to move between them. So apple, then we've got pineapple, banana, and lime. And the first variable we've created, product name, is where we're going to put in the value of each one of these, which is just the name of our product. Wonderful. Just to show you how this all connects together in case you're not super familiar with variables. The way it works is now that I've created a string variable, I can connect it to any text box. So for example, if I click on this text box and then all the way up here at the top, I'll click on this variable button here on top and I'll connect it to product name apple. You know, it doesn't look like it's changed, but this is where the modes come in. You'll find the mode selector in the appearance section of the design panel. It looks like this. If I click on it, it will notice that I have this collection 1 over here. This is because I'm using some colors from the iOS library, but this one is the one we want. And then I can change. So if I change to pineapple, you see that that now has changed. Change it to banana. Oh, I said banana. If I change it to lime, that now has changed. Now we're going to keep setting up this sort of database of ours. So underneath that, we have the price. So let's now create a price one. I'm going to add a new variable. It's going to be a number variable, and I'll call it product price. We can do whatever we want. So let's say for apple, it's going to be 50p, for a pineapple, 1.2, banana is 0.25, and a lime is 0.8. Completely arbitrary. Now let's connect that one as well. So I'll click on this text box over here and I will connect it to our product price. You notice what happened there is that we lost that pound sign. If a text box is connected to a variable, that's all that's going to take over. You can't have 2 things in there. So what I'm going to do is I'll actually duplicate this one and then select both of these, put them in an auto layout, Shift A, and then in here, I'll just put a pound sign. So I always have that one. So this one is connected to the variable. You can see that here. And this one is just normal. So now because it's on lime, it's going to have that 0.8. But if I move this here, if I change it to pineapple, see, now pineapple and 1.2. We're moving, we're progressing. Now we'll notice that the image hasn't changed. Now right now we don't have an image variable, but what we can do is we can sort of fake it by using the variable to choose an instance of a component. I know this sounds a bit crazy, but let's do it together. You'll see it's actually not that bad. If I put all of these images into a component set, so let's do that first of all. And then in my properties, I'm gonna make each one of these a different instance. So my property will be fruit, and then this one will be called apple. Now if I take this component, I'll take this apple, I'll copy it, and then I'll just replace it in here. So paste to replace, Command Shift R. You'll see that in the layers panel now, this is using an instance of this image. And if I go here to the top, I can select a different one. But when I hover over this drop down to select which variant I want to use, I can see that same button to select a variable to apply to it. So what I can say is actually, I don't want to select it. I want the variable to select which instance I'm using. So right now you can see if I hover over it, it says pineapple because that's the mode that this is on. And then that changed to be a pineapple. So if I change it to be a banana, hey, it's a banana. A lime, it's a lime. An apple, it's an apple. This is the power of variables and how amazingly dynamic they can make your designs. Now this only works, you have to bear in mind, if the value of the variable is exactly the same as the name of the instance. So if there was even something different, so let's say I had a spelling mistake here and it said pineapple like that, then you will see what happens is if I go to here and I change it to be pineapple, nothing is going to change. Yeah. And you see that there's a cross on the product name because it's realizing something's off. So make sure that you don't have any spelling mistakes and you're keeping everything correct. Let's make this into a component and put it into our page. So I'll just make this into a component. I'll call it fruit card, and then I'll copy it and I'll just paste it into this page. Maybe I'll put this in an auto layout so I can duplicate a few more. So Shift and A to put it into an auto layout, fit this to the sides of the frame. And I want 16 pixels of padding either side, and make sure that your instance inside is set to fill width, so then it takes up as much space as it can. I'll bring this a bit to the top, and then I'll just duplicate this guy 4 times. Now AI is wanting to replace content, but we don't need that because we've got our own content. Now I'll change the mode for each one of these. So the first one is already on apple. Let's make the second one pineapple, third one banana, and fourth one lime. Now let's get some interactions in here, right? What we want to happen is when they click on the plus, we want it to change into something like this, right? Because we want to then be able to add more items into the cart. Now there are many different ways that you can do it, but because we are talking about variables for prototyping, we're going to use the Boolean method in order to choose which one we're using. So we're going to create a new variable to start off with, and it's going to be a Boolean. Boolean is a true and false, on-off sort of variable. And we're going to call it product in cart. And it's going to start off false because at the start, none of them are in the cart, right? Now, what we want to happen is when they tap on this one, it changes to true and becomes this, yeah? Because now we can add more. The way I'm going to do it is I'm going to put both of these into a component set. The property that is going to differentiate between these variants is going to be in cart, and this one is going to be false, and this one is going to be true. Now it's very similar to what we did with the images. I'm going to have that Boolean select which of these variants I'm using. So I'll copy this plus and I'll paste to replace into my component over here, Command Shift R, and you can see that now it is the variant of add to cart, and I can change it between both of these. So now in my instances, it's that as well. And now the moment has arrived for our first variable prototyping interaction. Woo-hoo. Because right now, yeah, it's cool, but nothing happens. So let's make something happen when you click on it. I will select my plus right over here, so the original in the component, and I'll go into prototype mode and add an interaction. And the interaction is going to be on click, set variable product in cart to true, okay? Because when they click on it, the item is in the cart and it's going to change it to true. And then what we need to do is make sure that the instance that's selected on here is actually controlled by that variable, okay? So we selected it in here, so the instance that we're using inside of this fruit card component. Click on this button, and then that is selecting what it is. Just like this is being selected by the string variable, this is being selected by the Boolean variable. Now, moment of truth, we're going to click on our store frame, Shift and Space to pull up the prototyping preview. Now, when we click on this, it's supposed to turn into that. Let's see. Yay! 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 First interaction done. Now, you'll notice as well that only one of them changed, right? Even though they're all using the same component, when I clicked on this one, only the banana changed. And this is just a testament to the power of modes, right? Because they are all the same component. They're all using that same interaction that's coming way down from here. But because it knows right now I'm in this specific mode, I'm in this specific column of banana, anything that happens only affects this column. Now, the one downside to variable interactions as it stands right now is that you cannot add animations to them. So you can see it's pretty jittery when I click on it. It just happens. I can't make it a small anime or add any curve to it or bezels or anything like that. It just kind of happens, but it's fine for now. Using everything we created, we need to do just one more thing, right? We have this cart over here, which opens when you click on this guy. So let's connect it. I'm going to select this button over here, drag a noodle and say on tap, navigate to cart. And I'll make it move in from the bottom, maybe. Let's see that in action. Click on store, Shift and Space. Yeah, that comes up. And then this one should close it. So let's do that. I'll select that noodle back to here and move out, down. Great. So when we have an item added to the cart, when we click on that, we also want it to show up in here. How are we going to do that? Using that same Boolean, okay? So Booleans are great for hiding and showing a layer, so they can toggle the layer's visibility. What we can do is basically take this exact setup, copy it, paste it into the cart, right? Because this is kind of the max state, right? In the max state, we have all kinds of fruit in our cart. I'm going to connect the layer's visibility to that same Boolean. So while it's false and it's a plus, it's not in the cart, it's not going to show. Once we click on that plus and it changes to that stepper, we'll also show this in the cart. So in order to connect a Boolean variable to the layer, to the appearance, this is really annoying. You need to find this I in the appearance section and right click on it. So I connected that here, select it, right click and connect, right click and connect. So you see now they've all disappeared. Let's test this in action. Select my store, shift and space. I've added an apple. We can see that's in the cart. If I open my cart, it's there, yay! And no one else is, so let's close that. Let's add a banana. Moving along, yes! Now once we've changed over and we've clicked on that plus, we want to be able to count how many items, how many of this fruit we have in the cart, right? And we're gonna want to see that probably on this counter. So then we can click on plus and get more, click on minus to get less. Let's create another variable for that. So in our same collection, I'm actually going to rename this collection to fruit. I'm going to add another number variable, and I'm going to call this product count. So it's going to count how many of this product I have. And it's going to start off at 0. And I'm going to connect that to here. So I'm selecting this number. So I'll select my number over here and then connect it to product count. Now let's create an interaction from this plus. So if I select the plus and I'll add an interaction on tap, set variable product count to product count plus 1. So what it needs to do is look at however many they are now and add 1 to it. Let's see that in action. So click on our store, shift and space, plus. Now it's on 0, which we probably should change, right? Because when we click on the plus, it should already be a 1. That's fine for now. It's counted. Let's check that it doesn't affect the other ones. Great, so banana is still on 0. Now that's a 1, that's a 4. Great. Let's see that this carries over to our cart. Fantastic. You'll notice that I keep opening the prototype and checking it after every single thing that I do. I really recommend you use this sort of debugging method when you're doing advanced prototyping. Just stop after every interaction you add, open the prototype preview, make sure that it works, move on. It will save you the headache in the long run if later you're adding a bunch of stuff and then you're like, oh wait, it doesn't work, but I don't know why. It's just slow and steady wins the race. Now we've noticed that when we click on plus, that should probably be already at 1, right? So what we can do is add another interaction onto here. So I've clicked on this interaction, I got my interaction panel and I clicked on the plus. And we also want, after it changes the product in cart to true, I want it to do the exact same thing. Product count plus 1. Now let's test it out. Shift and space. Yes, it's already at 1. Fantastic. Now you'll notice in our cart that we have some things that haven't changed, right? When we add it, we want the price to be calculated, obviously. And we also want this little thing to show us how many items we have in the cart in total. So adding up the apples plus the bananas, plus the limes, plus the pineapples. So now we're going to create a new variable collection. The reason we're going to create another collection is because all of our cart variables don't need 4 modes, right? They only need to be in 1 mode. And this collection already has 4 modes, so every variable inside this collection has to use those modes. We're going to the 3 dots over here, create a new collection, and I'll call it cart. I'm going to need a few number variables. The first one is going to be cart total, right, for the total price. Then I need another variable, that's a number variable. So if you're creating the same type of variable, you don't need to go into here. You can shift and enter to create a new one. So this one is going to be cart total items. I'll actually change this one to be cart total price. so it's really, really clear and we're not confused about which one is which. Now let's connect these. Holding down Command to make that deep selection, selecting this 0, and like we had before where the pound sign and the 0 were not in the same text box, same here, you can see items and cart and 0 are separate text boxes, so we can connect it well. So I'll select it, and then in here, this is cart total items, and then this one, cart total price. Now, this is where it starts to get complicated, because you need to start thinking, where do I add these interactions in? So where is the best place for us to add on to this account? It's probably going to be when they click on this plus, right? Because every time they're adding, we need to add it into there. So we'll go into my prototyping mode, click on this interaction, and we're going to add one more interaction. So when you click on plus, we're going to set the product count to product count plus 1. We're also going to add cart total items to cart total items plus 1. And we already know from before that this is going to have to be on here as well, because this is the first plus, right? So it can't just be on here, because we'll always be one short, because this is actually the first time you're adding one in. So I'll add another one, set variable, cart total items to cart total items plus 1. Now you'll notice in here that you can move these around. These 3, technically, it doesn't really matter the order of them, but you'll get to a point in prototyping, when we might see this later, where the order really, really, really matters. So be cautious of that when you're adding new interactions of where they are. Let's test this out, shall we? So shift and space, adding an apple, 1, 2, 3, adding a banana, 1, 2, go into the cart. Yay, we have 5. Fabulous. Now let's add in the price. So for the price, we're going to do a bit of multiplication. So what we'll do is, when we add a new item, the cart total price is going to add that item's price onto it. So when I tap here to add one, cart total price becomes cart total price plus product price, right? Because we're adding one of that product. Fantastic. And we'll do that one on here as well, of course. So add one in, set variable, cart total price to cart total price plus product price. Let's see that in action. Select our store, shift and space, add an apple, add 1 pineapple, 1 banana, 1 lime. It worked. And if I add more apples, you can see that calculating it down at the bottom. It's already coming to life. It's amazing. Okay, so we've gotten this far. Really, really good. Now let's start to get into the slightly complex things. So for example, what happens if we want to minus something? So to start off, pretty simple. What I'm going to do is everything that happens here just needs to repeat in the reverse for minus. So a little trick, I can click on this interaction, copy it, Command C, click on the place where I want to paste it into and Command V, and it's going to copy all of those interactions. So this just saves us a lot of time. Now we need to make sure to go in and slightly amend those. So product count is product count minus 1. Cart total is cart total items minus 1. Cart total price is cart total price, and then minus the product price. Okay, let's see. Select our store, shift and space. Let's add an apple and let's add a banana. It should be 0.75. Great. Let's add another apple and another banana. Minus the banana. Yes. And you see the items and cards changed as well. Minus an apple. Yes. Yay. Amazing. Now, because you're very smart people, you are aware that this is not going to work forever, right? Because already, what's happening here? Yeah, we're at the minuses. We can't let this happen. We have to stop it at a certain point. So what we're going to do is we'll add some conditionals. Conditional is an if-else statement. We're basically telling Figma, if something is happening, which we're going to set, then do all of these actions. If that isn't set, else, do something else. So we're going to go into our minus and set that conditional up. I'm going to click on plus, add a conditional. This is another point where it can get a bit tricky sometimes, because you need to figure out what actually are you going to ask it to check and what needs to go inside of that conditional and what can happen either way. Now, because we're using this sort of style where when you click on minus and it's at 0, we want it to swap back to this we know that we're never going to get a situation where the user can click on this button to get below 0. Because at that point, they won't be seeing this anymore. They will be seeing this. Okay, so by doing that, we've kind of protected ourselves anyway a little bit. I'm going to move this conditional way down to the bottom, and I'm going to say if, and then this is where we write the condition. So if product count equals to 0, I'm going to ask it to set the Boolean variable, product in cart, to false. And what that's going to do is it's going to mean, like we know from the opposite, that this becomes this. So we're stopping the user from even having the ability to click on that minus. Yeah, I hope you're following. So that kind of also means that we don't need to move anything else into here. Because what it's going to do, when someone clicks on this minus, it's going to reduce the product count, reduce the cart total items, reduce the cart total price, and then check, did we reach 0? Because if now we've reached 0, I need to shut this down and display this instead. Okay, so let's see if that worked. I'm going to open it, shift and space. Let's add an apple, add another apple. That still works. Now, when we click on this, our expectation is that this will disappear and change into this. Let's see. Amazing. And let's check that it happened in the cart as well. So that's a 0, it's disappeared, and it says 0 here. Remember how before we talked about how the order is really important of the interactions? If this conditional happened first, we wouldn't get the same results. Let's see what happens if that was first. So I'll open this store, shift and space, add one, add another, go back down, and now it looks like it's okay, but when we go into the cart, notice we've got a -1 and a -0.5. And that is because it checked it before. So you can see how that order really, really matters. It's just about how it's reading it, because it's just reading the code kind of up, down. Let's move this conditional back to the ending so we know that it works correctly now. So technically we're good. We've got an e-commerce store. That's incredible. Now let's add in a few more small bits that will just make this prototype shine. I want us to add another variable into our cart collection. It's going to be a Boolean, and we're going to call it cart full. Or it's not really full, but has items in it, but that's too long. And it's going to start off as false because in the start, there is nothing in our cart. But when we add in an item, we want this to turn on. Why is that? So there's a few elements in here that can change according to if the cart is full or empty. First of all, let's say this button. Why are we giving the user a button that they can click on if there's nothing to do, right? So we want to create a disabled version. I'll copy this button out, move it onto here. Just like we did before with the others, duplicate it, and I'll just give it a grayish color. Yeah, something like that. Select both of these, component set. We know the drill. This one will be true. This one will be false. And the property, let's call it enabled. Now let's replace that, copying this button, pasting it in here. Command-Shift-R, paste to replace. And again, like we've done before a few times already, the variable is going to select which instance, which variant we're using. So this one's going to be cart is full. Now, in order to turn that on, I'm going to probably add it on to this plus over here because that is the first interaction. Once someone clicks on that, there is going to be something in the cart. So in here, I will add a new interaction at the end. On click, set variable cart full to true. Let's see that that worked. So let's click on the cart. We can see that it is in the disabled mode right now because it's false. Then if I add any item in, it's true. Yay! Let's do that for one more element using exactly the same thing. So I'll copy this, this button out for the cart. I'll duplicate it, add in a circle. So clicking on O, and I'll make that probably 10 by 10. Using the I key to get the eyedropper, get it in this color, bring it into here. Not into the auto layout, and just align it to the top. Yeah. So when the cart is full, I've got that notification thing telling me that, say full, this one is false. And again, I'm going fast because we've done this. We know this. It's one trick that lets us do so much stuff. Copying this one, pasting it in here, Command Shift and R, paste to replace. and then making sure to connect it to cart full. And the same thing should happen. Once I add anything in, boom, yay, so good. And that's just little things that add on. Now, how do we remove this? Okay, how do we tell it that it's done and you should now remove this symbol and you should make it disabled? You might say just connect it to the minus, right? So let's try that. I'm gonna add in a interaction onto here, probably at the end, right? And I'm gonna say set variable cart full to false, right? Because when you minus an item, it's gonna make it false. Or is it? Now, if I've added an apple and I've added a pineapple, this went to the true state. This is true. And now when I remove a pineapple, oh, wait a minute. No, that's disabled. Oh no. Why did that happen? So we don't want that to happen every single time, right? Just because someone minuses something doesn't mean the cart isn't full. We need to check, hint, if actually the cart is completely empty before we change it to false. So the way we're going to check that is with a conditional, correct? So instead of having this just floating around on its own, we'll sort of wrap it in a conditional. And that conditional is going to be if cart total price or cart total items, whichever way you want to go, equals 0, then change that. I'm going to go with items and I'm going to say equals to in this case and in code in general is 2 equal signs if you're typing this out, equals to 0, only then, move this into here, then you should change the cart to false. Let's see that in action. Command space, add an apple, add a pineapple, add a banana, add a lime, go into my cart. It's all still true. Minus that, okay, still true, still true, still true, and false. Yes, yay, amazing. And that is that. We just built a really complex prototype showing a very real e-commerce experience, okay? Obviously, you can take this even so much further, but I hope you learned some techniques in this video to make you feel more confident about doing stuff like this in the future. I hope you enjoyed. Please like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments below what other kind of videos you want to see. See you at the next one.